A third of Australia's veggie growers say they could leave the industry within a year due to rising costs and falling returns. Bad weather doesn't help, but falling veggie consumption figures have been identified as a critical problem. Landline's Tim Lee reports on an industry program educating people about why eating more veggies isn't just good for us, but good for farmers too.
Australians enjoy an extraordinary array of fresh vegetables, among the best in the world. From the tropics in the north to the cooler climate of the south, our immense continent and diverse climate and soils support a vast and varied industry.
So Australia's vegetable industry is truly national. We've got growing regions all around this country with thousands and thousands of growers who produce about 3.7 million tonnes of vegetables. The industry last year was worth about $5.7 billion in farm gate value, which is about a third of the $16.8 billion in national horticulture production.
Of that, only 5%, mostly comprising carrots, potatoes and onions, is exported. And only about 2% of our fresh vegetables is imported. New figures show production rose in 23-24. But the overall farm gate value of that produce dropped by $140 million. In real terms, that equates to a 12% drop in returns, and a big reason why vegetable growers are feeling the pinch.
So a lot of the pressures that we see on farm are exactly what every Australian household's going through at the moment. Our fuel and electricity prices are up through the roof, and a lot of our other inputs such as labour, fertiliser. Some of the fertilisers have come back down after those peaks we saw during COVID, but the average price is still well above what we would have been paying a number of years ago.
So whether that's energy, fuel, freight, packaging, labour, there's not a key farm input that's probably had a reduction in price for farmers over recent years. While we're in a cost of living crisis for the Australian public, we're in a cost of production crisis for Australian growers. We survey our industry twice a year, and consistently over the last 2 years or so, we've had about a third of growers responding to those surveys telling us that they're considering leaving the industry. Now that's a really alarming figure, that the environment that growers are facing at the moment, that there's up to 1/3 are looking to exit if they could.
In the latest survey, growers were asked if they'd leave the industry if offered a fair price for their land. The answer was unequivocal.
Unfortunately, we've got potentially up to 2/3 of growers, if they could find a viable exit strategy, they might leave the industry.
It's mid-sized family-run businesses feeling the most pressure. At Devon Meadows, on Melbourne's southeast fringe, it's a typically busy day for the Schreurs family. Its company has a reputation for being innovative, using next to no chemicals to produce high-quality produce, including newer vegetable varieties or improved, better-tasting versions of old ones. And to have them reach the market, not just in season, but for as many months as possible. So, Mark, what is this crop?
This is radicchio, which is a type of chicory, so it looks like an Italian red lettuce when it's mature. So we're planting this now in early April. It'll be harvested in September, and so it sits here over the whole winter.
And I guess the challenge for you is just bringing fresh produce through every week of the year.
Yes, well, basically we work our planting schedules out on what we're selling each week. So we work out our sales for each week, and then we work backwards to the planting schedules. And each year it's tweaked according to the sales from the previous year. What we mainly grow is leeks. That's the number one crop we do. And then we do the radicchio, we do some baby cos lettuce, we do a few brassicas as in sugarloaf cabbage and kohlrabi, and a bit of wombok over the summer. It's enough of a range to keep us busy, so. And we do that 12 months of the year. These leeks will be destined for one of the markets up and down the east coast or Adelaide. We do Woolworths and Aldi's and a lot of processors. We have a broad range of customers, so and all the markets. Mum and Dad started in 1963 in another property other side of Cranbourne, and then we moved here in 1989 when us boys decided we wanted to be part of the business. So we've taken it on ourselves, chose leeks as our main crop.
After every harvest, there's another crop ready to take its place. maintaining constant supply is just one of the challenges.
Australian producers confront some pretty formidable obstacles. There's the climate for a start, everything from heat waves to hailstorms. There's labour issues and labour shortages. There's also the domination of the two major supermarkets that can determine and dictate the price. And there's another one that's come to light more recently, and that's the issue of compliance.
Compliance is almost dictating how you are to run your farm. So it gets a bit too much for some people. They don't have the resources to keep up with everything, and so they have to give it away.
Compliance is essentially a raft of regulations aimed at safeguarding workers, as well as ensuring consumers get healthy and safe produce. So businesses undergo regular and rigorous audits.
Now that's grown into environmental, into OH&S, and it's all multiplying systems that are already there.
A recent report ranked Australia the second best in the world at producing safe food. With the third generation of Shrewers now in the business, the family will keep trying to find new ways to stay ahead of the game.
We've morphed what we've done over the years, and you just have to keep adapting. We keep adapting our processes, our way we grow. We're just cutting out our inputs as much as we can.
Catherine Meyer's family produces seed potatoes on red volcanic soils at Torello in Western Victoria. As Vice President of the Victorian Farmers Federation Horticulture Division, she believes farmers are too often price takers in a cutthroat market.
We have a massive imbalance of power between those that buy the product and those that are growing the product. I remember seeing a great phrase one day where they say farmers are the only people who buy retail, sell wholesale and pay the freight both directions, and that's exactly what farmers are doing.
Two giant supermarkets control the lion's share of Australia's grocery market. A recent investigation by the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, the ACCC, was critical of their dominance and behaviour towards producers.
It's certainly exacerbated by the fact that we've got two major players in that market, and they're really focusing in on very large producers. And once you get one of those contracts, you're sort of too big to fail then, and you can't afford to not supply them, and that's where they get to put the thumb screws on growers.
Patrick, some pretty impressive capsicums here.
Yeah, look, mate, capsicums are very versatile. Use them in a salad, on a pizza.
The Lamanna family sells high-quality produce in inner Melbourne and from a massive store in the city's west.
You need to be big to be able to supply the majors and be able to supply any major retailer, I think, across Australia. So you need to be ready for that kind of volume. You've got to take that punt on your next crop, the volume that you require, and it can be make or break. You could have weather factors or just simply your contract doesn't stand up with the retailer and all of a sudden you've lost a lot of money.
That's the prospect facing the grower of this onion crop. Onions grow well in soil where potatoes have been grown, but to harvest them they need a special machine. This one cost almost $800,000.
Onions are a real boom-bust industry, and probably a bit like potatoes, they're one that's really hard to get into unless you're an insider already. So those onions we saw harvested are likely to be fed to sheep.
The market for these potatoes is assured, however. They're contracted to a major food company and will be processed into frozen chips. But here again, the return for the grower doesn't seem like much.
It's a really nice, simple one to break down, actually. So a kilogram of potatoes makes about a 600 to 650 gram bag of frozen chips, which is what you'd buy in the supermarket for $5 or $6. Out of that $5 and $6, around 42 to 45 cents goes back to the farmer. So there's a lot of freight and a lot of processing and a lot of storage in there, but there's also some money that's going to somewhere else.
And perhaps surprisingly, given the cost of living pressures as a nation, we're eating less veggies, a downward trend now for several years.
Australians are only eating, on average, 1.8 serves of vegetables per person per day. With a serve of vegetables being 75 grams, that means we're only consuming nationally an average of about 130 grams per person per day, well below the recommended 5 nutritional daily serves. There's only 6.5% of adults and less than 5% of kids who actually consume the recommended amount of daily vegetables.
Fresh vegetables can cost 65 cents a serve, a lot cheaper than most snack foods.
And other options that people are gravitating towards. So I guess educate yourself, talk to the people that you know and try and get them to consume more fresh vegetables.
Most agree on what's needed: better consumer education. And that's happening. The Fresh Veg, Deliciously Affordable campaign is led by the Outdoor Media Association in partnership with Health and Wellbeing Queensland and AUSVEG.
I think it's a great idea. Veggies, either homegrown or ones that you've bought from the farmer or even from a supermarket, are really affordable and they fill you up and they're full of great nutrients to get onto. So I think everyone should be learning more about how we can include fresh Australian vegetables in your diet.
Things like sweet potato and pumpkin, carrots, they're a great way to get plenty of volume in your food, plenty of good nutrients. I love them, my kids love them, so we always go for that. Even the low-carb potato is a great option. So buy just what you need, plan out your recipes and your food for the week for you and your family. You won't get that kind of waste. Buy at the right retailers, those who support the local businesses, farmers markets, independent retailers, plenty of them out there. We've just got to find the right ones and support.
Teaching people how to cook, it's not that scary. It's you can look after yourself quite well, but it seems to be call up an app on your phone and get something delivered seems to be more convenient these days.
With the looming federal election, the peak body has formulated its blueprint it believes will offer some solutions.
AUSVEG's election priorities include around 21 different policy changes that we're looking from government, but one of our primary asks is to invest in a national long-term behaviour change campaign to arrest this alarming decline in vegetable consumption.
It wants to see consumer education extol the health benefits of fresh vegetables and within 5 years have every Australian eating an extra daily serve of them. So $4.7 billion in total net economic benefit from that additional one serve per person per day, of which $3.3 billion is in the vegetable supply chain and benefiting growers large, medium and small. That could create around 13,000 new jobs in regional Australia and reduce the federal healthcare budget spend by $1.4 billion. It's a plan much welcomed by growers.
Nearly every policy you make affects farmers, and I think we need to ensure that our food security and our capacity to produce high quality, safe food in this country needs to be at the absolute forefront of any government decision.